Commander Lee Jinho sat at his desk in the Terran Special Operations Facility on Luna Base. The morning briefing had been routine until the red priority alert flashed across his screen. He opened the encrypted message, and his coffee grew cold as he read. The Galactic Council had sent an official communication. The reptilian Saurian Empire was challenging Earth's claim to 3 mining colonies in the Kepler system. This was humanity's first major diplomatic crisis since joining the galactic community 2 years ago. Lee pressed the comm button. "Captain Park Minji to my office. Priority 1. Within minutes, Park arrived. She was Earth's best xenobiologist and had studied alien cultures since first contact. Her knowledge of alien behavior patterns made her invaluable to the Special Operations team. "We have a situation," Lee said, sliding the datapad across his desk. "The Saurians want to settle this through combat trials. Old galactic tradition." Park read through the message twice. Her eyebrows raised. "Commander, this is strange. They specifically request to face only our special forces. Why not our regular military?" Lee shrugged. "Maybe they think we're the best Earth has to offer." Makes sense from their perspective, but Park looked troubled. Something about the wording bothered her. The Saurian message used phrases like "honored to face the merciful ones" and "grateful for this opportunity." That did not sound like typical warrior culture language. "Sir, I need to review our files on Saurian behavior patterns," she said. "Something feels off about this." Lee nodded. "Do that. Meanwhile, I'll brief the team. We leave for Nexus Station in 48 hours. The Special Operations team gathered in the briefing room. Sergeant Kim Hyunwoo sat in the front row. He was their best combat specialist, enhanced with the latest human military technology. His reflexes were faster than baseline human normal, and his tactical awareness was nearly superhuman. Lieutenant Choi Yuna took her seat at the communications console. She would monitor all alien communications during the mission. Her language processing implants let her understand most major galactic languages in real time. Captain Nam Jisoo entered carrying a stack of intelligence reports. She had been analyzing everything Earth knew about the Saurian Empire for the past 6 months. It was not much. Most alien species kept their military capabilities secret. Colonel Han Minho walked in last. He was the senior officer for all of Earth's off-world operations. His presence meant this situation was more serious than a simple border dispute. "Listen up," Colonel Han began. "The Saurians have issued a formal challenge. 3 combat trials to determine control of the Kepler colonies. This is standard galactic law, so we have to accept." Kim raised his hand. "Sir, what do we know about their combat capabilities?" "Not much," Nam replied, consulting her reports. "They're reptilian, naturally stronger than humans, and they have a warrior culture. But they've never fought humans before." Park stood up. "I've been reviewing the communication logs. There's something unusual about their language patterns. They seem almost nervous about this challenge." Colonel Han frowned. "Nervous? They're the ones who issued the challenge." "Yes, sir, but look at this phrase here." Park pointed to her datapad. "They say they are honored to test themselves against Earth's gentle warriors." Gentle is not a word warrior cultures usually use. Choi looked up from her console. "I've been monitoring their public communications. They keep mentioning something called the Mercy Protocols. I have no idea what that means." Lee felt a growing confusion. Nothing about this situation matched what he expected from a standard military challenge. The Saurians seemed almost relieved that Earth had accepted their challenge rather than angry or aggressive. "Maybe it's a cultural thing we don't understand," Kim suggested. "Some alien species have strange honor codes." But Park shook her head. "I've studied 17 different warrior cultures in the galaxy. None of them talk about their enemies this way. It's like they're grateful we're fighting them instead of someone else." Colonel Han checked his chronometer. "Whatever their reasons, we have a mission to complete. Kim, you'll handle the personal combat trial. Choi, monitor all communications for intelligence. Nam, I want detailed analysis of their tactics. Park, keep studying their behavior patterns." The team spent the next day preparing. Kim practiced with various weapons and combat techniques. His enhanced reflexes let him move faster than any normal human could. His tactical implants gave him perfect situational awareness. He felt confident about facing any alien warrior. Nam studied every scrap of intelligence about Saurian military doctrine. Their ships were powerful but not advanced. Their weapons were effective but not sophisticated. On paper, they seemed like a typical mid-level galactic power. Park continued analyzing the linguistic patterns in Saurian communications. The more she read, the more confused she became. The Saurians kept using words like mercy, restraint, and controlled response. These were not typical military terms. Choi intercepted dozens of Saurian military transmissions. Most were encrypted, but the few she could decode spoke of maintaining proper protocols and avoiding escalation. It sounded more like they were trying to prevent a war rather than start one. The day before departure, Park made a disturbing discovery. While reviewing historical galactic records, she found references to something called the Proxima Incident. The details were classified, but it involved humans and resulted in what the records called complete strategic realignment. She brought this information to Lee immediately. "Commander, I think we're missing something important," she said. "The galactic records mention several incidents involving humans, but Earth Command has no record of these events." Lee studied the fragmentary reports. "Maybe they're talking about different humans. There might be other human colonies we don't know about. Or maybe," Park said quietly, "there are things about our own military that we don't know about." That evening, Colonel Han received a priority message from Earth Command. The orders were simple but unusual. Maintain diplomatic relations at all costs. Avoid mentioning standard military protocols. And under no circumstances discuss Earth's regular army units. He read the message 3 times. Why would Earth Command care about regular army units? The Special Operations Team was Earth's most elite military force. What could regular soldiers have to do with an alien diplomatic crisis? The next morning, the team boarded their transport ship for Nexus Station. As Earth fell away behind them, none of them realized they were about to discover that everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy was completely wrong. Kim stared out the viewport at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, an alien warrior was preparing to face him in combat. He felt ready for the challenge. His training had prepared him for anything. He had no idea that across the galaxy, that same alien warrior was praying to his gods for the mercy of facing only Earth's special forces instead of the terrifying alternative that kept entire star systems awake at night. The transport ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Earth's most elite soldiers toward a confrontation that would reveal the most carefully guarded secret in human history. Nexus Station was the largest neutral facility in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of different species docked at its massive ports. Commander Lee Jinho watched through the viewport as their transport approached the station. He had never seen so many alien vessels in one place. The Saurian delegation was waiting when they arrived. Commander Vextar stood 7 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes. His warriors flanked him, each one carrying traditional weapons alongside modern energy rifles. They looked impressive and dangerous, but Park Minji noticed something strange. When Vextar saw the human team, his posture relaxed. His warriors seemed almost relieved. This was not how enemy commanders usually acted before combat trials. "Welcome, honored humans," Vextar said in accented Standard Galactic. "We are grateful for this opportunity to test ourselves against Earth's finest warriors." Kim Hyunwoo stepped forward. "We accept your challenge. When do the trials begin?" "Tomorrow at the dawn cycle," Vextar replied. "The combat arena has been prepared according to ancient traditions." As the Saurians left, Park pulled Lee aside. "Did you hear how he said finest warriors? It sounded almost like he was relieved we brought our best instead of someone else." Lee frowned. "What else would we bring? We are Earth's elite unit." But Park's concerns proved correct when they reached their quarters. Choi Yuna had been monitoring alien communications during the docking process. She called the team together with a worried expression. "I picked up dozens of transmissions," she said. "Most are encrypted, but I decoded enough to be concerned. The other alien observers keep talking about how lucky the Saurians are." "Lucky?" Namjisu asked. "That's what I don't understand," Choi continued. "They keep saying things like at least it's only the special ones and thank the stars they didn't send the others." Kim felt confused. "The others? What others? We're Earth's most elite military unit." Colonel Han Minho had been quiet during this exchange. Now he spoke up. "I received another message from Earth Command during transit. Very specific orders about what we can and cannot discuss with the aliens." He showed them his data pad. The list of forbidden topics was long and strange. No mention of standard military protocols. No discussion of regular army units. No references to something called the Standard Doctrine. What is the Standard Doctrine? Park asked. I don't know, Han admitted. That's what worries me. The next morning, the combat arena was filled with observers from across the galaxy. Representatives from the Centaurian Alliance, the Rigelian Trade Federation, and dozens of smaller species had come to watch humanity's first official combat trial. The arena itself was a large circular space with energy barriers to protect the audience. Ancient galactic law governed these trials, single combat between chosen warriors, with the winner's species gaining the disputed territory. Krextel entered first. He was the largest saurian Kim had ever seen, nearly 8 feet tall and covered in battle scars. He carried a massive warhammer that looked like it could crush a human with one blow. Kim entered wearing standard special operations armor. His enhanced reflexes and tactical implants gave him advantages, but he was still much smaller than his opponent. The crowd of alien observers watched in tense silence. "Begin!" announced the neutral arbiter. Krextel charged with surprising speed for his size. The warhammer swept through the air where Kim had been standing a moment before. Kim's enhanced reflexes let him dodge easily. He could have struck back immediately, but his training emphasized controlled response. The fight continued for several minutes. Krextel was strong and skilled, but Kim was faster and more tactical. Several times, Kim had clear opportunities for killing strikes. Each time, he chose non-lethal alternatives instead. Finally, Kim managed to get behind the saurian warrior and applied a submission hold. Krextel struggled briefly, then tapped the surrender signal. The fight was over, but instead of anger or shame, something unexpected happened. Krextel smiled as Kim helped him to his feet. The saurian warrior actually looked grateful. "Well fought, human," Krextel said. "Your mercy honors us both." The alien observers were not cheering for an exciting fight. They were sighing with relief. Park noticed this immediately. Why would alien spectators be relieved by a human victory? The second trial was a tactical simulation. Lieutenant Choi faced 3 saurian officers in a computer-generated battle scenario. Her enhanced processing speed and tactical training let her outmaneuver them completely. Again, she chose strategies that minimized casualties rather than maximized damage. Again, the defeated saurians seemed grateful rather than bitter. The third trial was a test of problem-solving under pressure. Captain Nam competed against saurian intelligence officers to analyze and respond to a crisis scenario. Her systematic approach and calm decision-making won easily. By the end of the trials, Earth had won all 3 competitions. According to galactic law, the Kepler colonies belonged to humanity, but the strange behavior of both the saurians and the observers continued. During the victory celebration that night, Park mingled with alien diplomats trying to understand their odd reactions. She approached a Rigelian trade representative who seemed willing to talk. "Congratulations on your victory," the Rigelian said. "The saurians chose wisely to face your special forces." "What do you mean by that?" Park asked carefully. The Rigelian looked nervous. "Well, everyone knows about your special forces. They are famous for their restraint and diplomatic approach, much better than the alternative." "What alternative?" The Rigelian's expression became frightened. "Surely you know about your own military structure? The special forces handle diplomatic conflicts. The others handle threats that require permanent solutions." Park felt a chill. "What others?" But before the Rigelian could answer, a Centaurian military attaché grabbed his arm and pulled him away. "Do not speak of such things," the Centaurian hissed. "The humans might take offense." Across the room, Choi was having a similar experience. She had struck up a conversation with a young saurian officer who had been drinking too much fermented fruit juice. "You fight with such honor," the officer slurred. "Not like the stories we hear about the others." "What stories?" Choi asked. "About Proxima," the officer whispered. "About what happened to the hegemony fleets. About the silent campaign." But his commander appeared immediately and dragged him away before he could say more. Kim found himself surrounded by alien warriors who wanted to congratulate him on his merciful fighting style. They kept using that word, merciful, as if showing mercy in combat was something unusual and noteworthy. By the end of the evening, every member of the human team had heard similar fragments of conversation. References to mysterious events, mentions of different types of human military units, and an underlying current of fear whenever anyone mentioned Earth's regular forces. Commander Lee gathered his team in their quarters after the celebration ended. "Something is very wrong here," he said. "These aliens are not just impressed by our victory. They're relieved that we won through restraint rather than overwhelming force. It's like they expected us to be more violent," Kim added. "Every alien I spoke with seemed surprised that I helped Krextol up after defeating him." Park had been taking notes throughout the evening. "I heard references to at least 3 historical incidents involving humans. The Proxima event, something called the Hegemony War, and the Silent Campaign, but Earth Command has no records of any of these." Nam looked troubled. "Either there are other human military forces we don't know about, or there are things about our own forces that have been classified beyond our security level." Colonel Han received another message from Earth Command that night. The orders were even more specific than before. Maintain friendly relations with all alien species. Avoid any discussion of human military capabilities beyond special forces, and report any questions about standard protocols immediately. As the team prepared to return to Earth, none of them realized they were about to uncover the most carefully guarded secret in human space. Their victory at Nexus Station had been impressive, but not for the reasons they thought. Across the galaxy, alien species were breathing sighs of relief. The humans had once again chosen to send their merciful special forces to handle a conflict. The alternative was too terrifying to contemplate, but that alternative was about to become impossible to hide. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. During that time, Park Minji could not stop thinking about the strange conversations she had overheard at Nexus Station. Every alien she had spoken with seemed to know something about human military capabilities that she did not. She spent hours reviewing the recorded communications from the station. Hidden in the background chatter of dozens of alien languages, she found disturbing patterns. References to the incident appeared in 7 different conversations. Mentions of what the humans did to the hegemony came up 12 times. But when she searched Earth's military databases, she found nothing about any hegemony conflict. Captain Nam Jisoo was having similar problems. Her intelligence training had taught her to look for gaps in information. The gaps she was finding now were enormous. According to galactic communication networks, humanity had been involved in at least 4 major military actions in the past 2 years. According to Earth's records, they had fought only minor skirmishes with pirates. Someone was lying, and Nam was beginning to suspect it was Earth Command. Lieutenant Choi Yuna had continued monitoring alien communications during their return journey. The messages she intercepted were becoming more interesting and more frightening. 2 separate alien military commanders had sent reports to their governments about confirming that Earth still follows containment protocols. Containment protocols. What did that mean? Commander Lee Jinho called a team meeting on the 2nd day of their journey. They gathered in the ship's small conference room, away from the regular crew members. "We need to talk about what we learned at Nexus Station," Lee began. "I've been in contact with other special operations commanders. They're reporting similar experiences with alien reactions." Kim Hyunwoo leaned forward. "What kind of experiences?" "Excessive gratitude from defeated enemies, fear from neutral observers, and constant references to human military actions that don't appear in our official records." Park spread her notes across the table. "I've identified at least 6 different incidents that aliens believe humans were involved in. The Proxima event 18 months ago, something called the Hegemony War, the Silent Campaign, the Scorched Worlds incident, the Great Silence, and something they just call what happened to Vega." Nam pointed to her datapad. "Earth Command has no records of any of these events, but according to intercepted alien intelligence reports, these incidents fundamentally changed the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy." "That's impossible," Lee said. "We would know if humanity had fought major wars, would we?" Choi asked quietly. "What if there are human military units that operate outside normal command structure? What if the Special Operations Division is not actually Earth's elite force?" The team sat in uncomfortable silence. The idea that they might not represent humanity's best military capability was difficult to accept. They had been trained to believe they were Earth's finest warriors. Park broke the silence. "There's something else. I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in alien communications about humans. They use 2 completely different sets of words when talking about us." She activated her translation program. When they talk about special operations units like us, they use words that translate to honorable, restrained, merciful, and diplomatic. But when they mention other human forces, they use words like absolute, final, inevitable, and complete. Different words for different types of soldiers, Nam mused. That suggests there really are other human military units with different operational doctrines. Kim felt a growing unease. What if we're not Earth's elite forces at all? What if we're something else entirely? Before anyone could answer, Colonel Han Minho entered the conference room. His expression was grim. "I need to speak with all of you," he said. "I've been in communication with Earth Command for the past 6 hours. They've given me permission to share some classified information." The team exchanged glances. Finally, they were going to get answers. Han activated the room's security protocols, ensuring their conversation could not be monitored or recorded. "What I'm about to tell you does not leave this room. The consequences for unauthorized disclosure are severe." He paused, clearly struggling with what he was about to reveal. The Special Operations Division was created 2 years ago with a very specific mission. We are not Earth's elite military force. We are Earth's diplomatic military force. What does that mean? Lee asked. It means we were designed to fight wars in a way that maintains galactic stability. Our enhanced abilities, our tactical training, our emphasis on restraint and proportional response, all of it was specifically designed to create a certain impression of human military capabilities. Park felt her stomach drop. An impression? You mean we're for show? Not for show, Han said carefully. We are highly capable soldiers, but we are not representative of humanity's full military potential. We are representative of humanity's diplomatic potential. Kim leaned back in his chair. There really are other human forces. Regular military units that the galaxy fears. Han nodded slowly. Earth maintains 2 completely separate military structures. The Special Operations Division handles situations that require diplomacy, restraint, and measured response. The Standard Infantry handles situations that require different solutions. What kind of different solutions? Nam asked, though her intelligence training suggested she already knew the answer. Permanent ones, Han said simply. The Standard Infantry does not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They do not leave threats partially resolved. When they are deployed, the problem is solved completely and finally. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Choi spoke up. The incidents the aliens keep mentioning. Proxima, the Hegemony War, the Silent Campaign. Those were Standard Infantry operations? Yes. 18 months ago, a coalition of aggressive alien species called the Hegemony of Worlds decided to test humanity's defenses. They sent invasion fleets to probe our outer colonies. Han paused, choosing his words carefully. The Standard Infantry response was swift and absolute. 12 alien worlds went silent. 43 fleets simply disappeared. The hegemony ceased to exist as a political entity within 6 days. Park felt sick. 6 days? How is that possible? Because the Standard Infantry fights wars the way humans have always fought wars when their survival is threatened. Without restraint, without mercy, and without stopping until the threat is completely eliminated. Kim thought about his fight with Krextul. The Saurian warrior had seemed genuinely grateful for Kim's restraint. Now he understood why. If Kim had been a Standard Infantry soldier, Krextul would simply be dead. How many people know about this? Lee asked. On Earth? Maybe 1,000 individuals. In the galaxy? Every major government and military organization. The aliens know exactly what humanity is capable of when threatened. That knowledge has prevented 17 separate conflicts in the past 18 months. Nam looked up from her notes. The containment protocols that keep appearing in alien communications. They're not containing us. We're containing ourselves. Exactly. The galaxy stays peaceful because they believe the Special Operations Division represents humanity's preference for diplomatic solutions. They also stay peaceful because they know what happens to species that push humanity beyond diplomatic solutions. Park thought about all the grateful aliens at Nexus Station. They're not just impressed by our restraint. They're relieved that we chose restraint instead of the alternative. The Saurians' challenge was actually a diplomatic gesture, Han confirmed. By formally challenging us to combat trials, they were asking us to resolve the dispute through our diplomatic military forces instead of our standard forces. Choi looked troubled. But this is all based on fear. The galaxy is peaceful because they're afraid of us. Fear can be a foundation for peace, Han said, but it's not a stable foundation. That's why the Special Operations Division exists. We provide an alternative to fear. We show that humanity prefers cooperation and measured responses. But we're living a lie, Kim protested. We're pretending to be something we're not, are we? Han asked. Everything you did at Nexus Station was real. Your skills, your restraint, your tactical abilities, all of it was genuine. You won those trials through superior training and discipline, not through deception. But we didn't know what we were really representing, Park said. Does that change what you accomplished? Han countered. You resolved a territorial dispute without loss of life. You demonstrated that humanity values proportional response over overwhelming force. You gave the galaxy a reason to choose cooperation over conflict. The team spent the rest of the journey processing this information. By the time they reached Earth, they understood their role in a much larger strategy. They were not humanity's strongest military force, but they might be humanity's most important one. As their ship entered Earth's atmosphere, each team member was thinking about the same question. If the galaxy knew the truth about humanity's military capabilities, would peace be possible at all? The answer to that question was about to become very important. Back on Luna Base, Park Minji could not sleep. The conversation with Colonel Han had answered some questions but raised many more. She needed to know exactly what the standard infantry had done to earn such fear from an entire galaxy. 3 days after their return, her answer came from an unexpected source. Park was working late in the xenobiology lab when her secure communication system activated. The caller ID showed only random numbers, but the voice that spoke was unmistakably alien. "Dr. Park," said a nervous Saurian voice. "This is Commander Yithrak of Saurian Intelligence. I need to speak with you privately." Park looked around the empty lab. "How did you get this frequency?" "This is a classified channel. My government has been monitoring human communication since the Hegemony War. We needed to understand your capabilities after what happened." "I'm listening," Park said carefully. "I am sending you historical records that my government has kept secret. You need to understand what your species did 18 months ago. You need to understand why the entire galaxy fears to anger Earth." Park's computer chimed as encrypted files began downloading. Terabytes of data, including video recordings, tactical analyses, and survivor testimonies from something called the 6-Day War. The first video file showed a hegemony invasion fleet approaching human space. 300 warships from 12 different species, representing the combined military might of an alliance that had conquered 17 star systems. The fleet was massive and confident. Communication intercepts showed the hegemony commanders discussing their plans to test human defenses and claim Earth's outer colonies as their own. The second video showed what happened next. Human ships appeared from nowhere. Not the sleek diplomatic vessels that the Special Operations Division used, but massive, angular warships that looked like they had been designed for a single purpose: complete destruction of enemy forces. The human ships moved with mechanical precision. There was no attempt at communication, no warning shots, no opportunity for surrender. They simply began systematically destroying every hegemony vessel in the fleet. Park watched in horrified fascination as 300 alien warships were reduced to debris in less than 4 hours. The human ships worked with cold efficiency, targeting critical systems with impossible accuracy. But the space battle was only the beginning. The third video showed what happened to the hegemony homeworlds. Human forces had somehow identified every planet, station, and military facility belonging to the Alliance. The attacks came simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Park had to pause the video several times. What she was watching was not war as the Special Operations Division understood it. This was extermination. Human forces landed on hegemony worlds and began systematic elimination of all military infrastructure. Government buildings, communication centers, shipyards, weapons factories, everything was destroyed with ruthless precision. But the humans did not stop there. They began targeting what the records called leadership infrastructure, government officials, military commanders, anyone involved in the decision to attack human space. The survivors' testimonies were the most disturbing part. Hegemony civilians described human soldiers who moved through their cities like unstoppable machines. No emotion, no hesitation, no mercy for anyone who resisted. They did not speak, one survivor reported. They did not respond to surrender offers. They simply completed their mission and moved to the next target. Within 6 days, the hegemony of worlds ceased to exist. Not defeated, eliminated. 12 species that had ruled an empire spanning 43 star systems were reduced to scattered refugee populations. And then the human forces simply disappeared, leaving behind worlds that would never again pose a threat to anyone. Park realized she was shaking as she watched the final video file. It showed a massive human battleship departing from the ruins of the hegemony capital world. The ship's hull carried no identification marks, no diplomatic symbols. It looked like a weapon that happened to be ship-shaped. Her communication system activated again. "Now you understand," said Commander Yithrak's voice. "This is why the galaxy fears to anger humanity. This is why we were so grateful to face your special operations forces instead of the others." "How many people died?" Park asked quietly. The hegemony military was completely eliminated. Approximately 40 million soldiers and officers. But the civilian populations were spared, as long as they did not resist the dismantling of their military infrastructure. 40 million people, Park whispered. "In 6 days, Yithrak confirmed. Your standard infantry forces treated it like a routine security operation. No emotion, no celebration, no regret. They eliminated a threat and returned to their bases as if nothing had happened." Park thought about Kim Hyun-woo's careful restraint during his fight with Krextul. The contrast was almost impossible to comprehend. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Because my government believes your Special Operations Division does not fully understand what you represent," Yithrak said. "You are not just Earth's diplomatic military force. You are proof that humanity can choose restraint even when they possess overwhelming power. And if we didn't exist, then every dispute would be resolved the way the hegemony war was resolved. Completely and permanently. The galaxy would be empty of intelligent life within a decade." After the communication ended, Park sat alone in her lab for hours, processing what she had learned. The Special Operations Division was not just a diplomatic tool. They were a safety valve that kept humanity from destroying everything around them. The next morning, she shared the recordings with the rest of the team. They watched in silence as their understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy shifted completely. "We're not elite soldiers," Kim said finally. "We're the alternative to genocide." Commander Lee looked pale. "Every time we resolve a conflict peacefully, we're preventing something like this." Nam was studying the tactical data from the hegemony war. "The precision is incredible. They identified and eliminated specific targets across dozens of star systems simultaneously. The logistics alone should be impossible." "How many standard infantry soldiers are there?" Choi asked. Colonel Han had joined them for this briefing. "That information is classified above my level. But based on what they accomplished in 6 days, there are enough." Park thought about the grateful aliens at Nexus Station. They see us as proof that humanity can be reasoned with. Without us, they would have no choice but to submit completely or face extinction. "The responsibility is enormous," Lee said. "Every mission we undertake, every diplomatic solution we provide, we're maintaining the balance that keeps the galaxy inhabitable." Han nodded grimly. "Earth Command has decided that you all have a right to know the full scope of your mission. You are not just representing humanity in diplomatic conflicts. You are representing the possibility of survival for every other species in the galaxy." The team spent the rest of the day reviewing additional classified files. The pattern was consistent across multiple conflicts. When alien species chose to work with the Special Operations Division, disputes were resolved peacefully with minimal casualties. When they chose to escalate beyond diplomatic solutions, the standard infantry provided final answers. Kim found records of 3 other incidents where alien aggressors had ignored diplomatic overtures from the Special Operations Division. In each case, the aggressive species simply ceased to exist within days of the standard infantry deployment. "It's not even war," Kim said. "It's pest control. And we're the exterminators," Choi added quietly. "No," Park corrected. "We're the alternative to exterminators. We're proof that humanity prefers cooperation to elimination." But that proof was about to be tested in ways none of them could imagine. Late that evening, Nam's intelligence monitoring systems detected unusual military buildups in the Centaurian Alliance. 3 separate species were quietly mobilizing fleets and positioning them near neutral trade routes. The aliens had been watching humanity's diplomatic approach for 2 years. Some of them were beginning to believe that human restraint indicated human weakness. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The crisis began 2 weeks after the team learned the truth about the standard infantry. Captain Nam Jisoo was monitoring galactic intelligence networks when she detected massive military movements in the Centaurian Alliance. 3 separate species, the Centaurians, the Vegan Trade Consortium, and the Rigelian Defense League, were quietly moving warships toward the neutral Arcturus sector. Their public statements claimed these were routine military exercises. Nam knew better. The fleet positions and supply movements indicated preparation for territorial expansion, not training exercises. She called an emergency meeting with Commander Lee and the rest of the team. The Alliance forces are positioning for a major offensive, Nam reported. Best estimates suggest they plan to claim the entire Arcturus sector, including 6 populated neutral worlds. Park studied the tactical display. That would displace millions of civilians. The neutral worlds have no military defenses. Why would they risk this? Kim asked. They know what happened to the hegemony. Lee had been thinking about the same question. Maybe they think they've figured out how to avoid triggering a standard infantry response. Colonel Han joined the meeting remotely from Earth Command headquarters. His expression was grim. We've been monitoring the same intelligence, he said. The Alliance believes they can execute their expansion without directly threatening human interests. They think if they avoid confrontation with Earth, the standard infantry won't be deployed. Choi looked up from her communication monitoring station. I've been intercepting their military communications. They keep referring to what they call the human doctrine. They believe we only respond to direct attacks against human territories or citizens. That's partially correct, Han admitted. The standard infantry deployment protocols are classified, but they primarily activate in response to threats against humanity itself. Nam pulled up historical data on her screen. But what about the hegemony war? They weren't directly attacking Earth when the standard infantry eliminated them. The hegemony declared their intention to conquer human space, Han explained. That constituted a direct threat. The Alliance is being more careful to avoid explicit threats against humanity. Park felt a growing sense of unease. So they can conquer neutral worlds as long as they don't threaten us directly? According to the current deployment protocols, yes. Kim stood up abruptly. That's wrong. We can't just let them massacre innocent civilians because they're smart enough not to threaten us directly. What choice do we have? Lee asked. The Special Operations Division doesn't have the firepower to stop a 3-species alliance. We're designed for diplomatic conflicts, not major wars. And if we request standard infantry deployment for a non-direct threat, Earth Command will refuse the authorization, Han added. The team sat in frustrated silence. They had learned they were humanity's diplomatic face. But that diplomacy only worked when backed by the threat of overwhelming force. If potential aggressors found ways to avoid triggering that threat, the entire system broke down. Park accessed her xenobiology databases. The 6 neutral worlds in the Arcturus sector have a combined population of 47 million beings. Most are refugees from previous conflicts, who chose neutrality specifically to avoid military entanglements. 47 million people who will die or be enslaved because the Alliance found a loophole in our deployment protocols, Kim said bitterly. Over the next 3 days, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Alliance fleet movements became more obvious. Intelligence reports confirmed they were planning simultaneous assaults on all 6 neutral worlds within the week. Diplomatic protests from other galactic powers were ignored. The Alliance had done their calculations and concluded that the benefits of expansion outweighed the risks. Commander Lee tried every diplomatic option available. He contacted Alliance representatives and offered to mediate territorial disputes through the established galactic arbitration system. They politely declined. He proposed economic incentives for peaceful expansion into uninhabited systems. They expressed no interest. He even offered to negotiate human support for limited Alliance expansion in exchange for leaving the neutral worlds untouched. They responded that human approval was unnecessary for their operations. The Alliance had called humanity's bluff, and humanity's bluff turned out to be real limitations on when overwhelming force could be used. On the 4th day, Park made a disturbing discovery while reviewing Alliance communications intercepts. They're not just testing our deployment protocols, she reported to the team. They're testing the entire galactic balance of power. If they succeed in conquering the Arcturus sector without triggering a standard infantry response, other aggressive species will follow their example. Nam nodded grimly. I've detected similar military buildups in the Outer Rim territories. 3 other species are watching this situation closely. If the Alliance succeeds, we'll see expansion wars across the galaxy within months. And millions more will die, Kim added. Colonel Han had been conspicuously absent from their recent briefings. When he finally contacted them, his expression was more troubled than they had ever seen. I've been in continuous communication with Earth Command for the past 72 hours, he said. The situation is more complex than we initially understood. How so? Lee asked. The Alliance expansion is being carefully orchestrated to exploit specific gaps in our deployment protocols. But those gaps exist for a reason. If we authorize standard infantry deployment for indirect threats, we fundamentally change the rules that govern galactic conflicts. Park leaned forward. What do you mean? Currently, species know they can avoid human military intervention by not directly threatening human interests. That limitation is the only thing preventing us from becoming a galactic dictatorship. The implications hit the team immediately. If humanity started deploying overwhelming force to protect non-human interests, they would effectively become the galaxy's rulers by default. But if we don't act, 47 million innocent beings will suffer, Kim protested. And if we do act using standard infantry protocols, we become the very thing the galaxy fears most, Han replied. An unstoppable force that intervenes wherever it chooses. Choi looked up from her monitoring station. The Alliance fleets have begun moving toward the Arcturus sector. Best estimates suggest they'll reach the neutral worlds within 18 hours. The team faced an impossible choice. Allow innocent beings to be conquered and enslaved to maintain the principles that kept humanity from becoming galactic tyrants, or abandon those principles to save lives and risk becoming the dictators the galaxy secretly feared they already were. There has to be another option, Park said desperately. Such as? Lee asked. Park was quiet for several minutes, accessing xenobiology databases and historical records. Finally, she looked up with a new expression. What if we don't use standard infantry protocols? What if we use special operations protocols but apply them differently? Explain, Han said. The Alliance is avoiding direct confrontation with us because they fear the standard infantry response. But they're not afraid of the Special Operations Division because they think we're limited by our diplomatic mandate. Kim caught on first. You're suggesting we demonstrate that our diplomatic mandate includes protecting neutral worlds? More than that, Park continued. What if we demonstrate the difference between our diplomatic capabilities and our standard capabilities? Not by deploying the standard infantry, but by showing what the Special Operations Division can accomplish when we stop holding back. Nam studied tactical projections on her screen. We're still massively outnumbered. The Alliance has committed over 400 warships to this operation, but they're expecting either no human response or a standard infantry response that eliminates them completely, Park said. They're not prepared for a proportional response that defeats them without destroying them. Lee was beginning to understand. A demonstration that shows the galaxy what human restraint actually means. Not weakness, but choice. Exactly. We defeat the Alliance expansion without eliminating the Alliance itself. We save the neutral worlds without becoming galactic dictators. We show everyone watching that humanity has options between diplomatic protest and total destruction. Colonel Han was quiet for a long moment. That would require authorization for enhanced special operations protocols, combat capabilities that we've never used in front of galactic observers. Capabilities that exist between our current diplomatic limits and standard infantry elimination protocols? Park asked. Yes. Earth Command has been developing intermediate response options specifically for situations like this. Kim felt a surge of hope. You mean we can actually stop this without triggering a galactic dictatorship? Possibly, Han said cautiously. But it would require revealing human military capabilities that we've kept hidden until now. The galaxy would learn that our restraint is a choice, not a limitation. Is that good or bad? Choi asked. That, Han replied, is what we're about to find out. 12 hours before the Alliance fleets reached the Arcturus sector, Commander Lee Jinho received unprecedented authorization from Earth Command. The Special Operations Division was cleared to demonstrate intermediate response protocols in full view of galactic observers. Lee had never heard of intermediate response protocols before this crisis. Now he was learning that humanity had spent 2 years developing military capabilities specifically designed to fill the gap between diplomacy and extermination. The enhanced protocols allow us to engage multiple enemy fleets simultaneously, Colonel Han explained during their final briefing. But unlike standard infantry operations, the goal is defeat and deterrence rather than elimination. Kim Hyunwoo studied the new tactical parameters on his display. His enhanced reflexes and combat systems were being upgraded with capabilities he had never accessed before. How much more effective will we be? Significantly, Han replied. Your diplomatic limitations have been masking your actual combat potential. The restraint systems that govern your current operations will be partially lifted. Park Minji felt concerned about the implications. If we demonstrate these capabilities, the galaxy will know we've been holding back during every previous conflict. That's the point, Han said. The Alliance expansion is based on their belief that our restraint indicates limited capabilities. We need to show them that our restraint is a choice, not a weakness. Captain Nam Jisoo had been analyzing Alliance fleet compositions. 437 warships from 3 different species. Even with enhanced protocols, we're facing overwhelming numerical superiority. Numbers matter less when you're not limited by diplomatic engagement rules, Han explained. Standard military doctrine focuses on decisive victory, rather than minimal necessary force. Lieutenant Choi Yuna looked up from her communications station. I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Every major species has positioned observer ships near the Arcturus sector. They all want to see how humanity responds to this challenge. The team prepared for departure knowing that their actions would be watched by the entire galaxy. The precedent they set would determine whether the careful balance between human restraint and human capability could survive. Their ship, the diplomatic vessel Sol, had been quietly retrofitted with systems that matched its enhanced crew capabilities. As they approached the Arcturus sector, Lee realized the ship felt different. More responsive, more powerful, more dangerous. Alliance fleets are 6 hours from the first neutral world, Nam reported. The planetary governments have issued surrender declarations to avoid bombardment. 47 million people giving up their freedom because they have no other choice, Kim said grimly. Park accessed communication channels to the neutral worlds. This is Commander Lee Jin-ho of the Terran Special Operations Division. Do not surrender. Human forces are en route to provide assistance. The response came immediately from multiple planetary governors. Grateful but confused voices asking how a single human diplomatic ship could stand against an entire Alliance fleet. Lee decided to answer that question with actions rather than words. Enhanced. Protocols are now active, Han announced. All diplomatic limitations have been temporarily suspended. Kim felt the change immediately. His combat systems activated capabilities he had never known existed. His tactical awareness expanded to cover the entire sector simultaneously. His reflexes increased beyond anything he had experienced before. But more importantly, his rules of engagement changed completely. Instead of minimal necessary force, he was authorized to use optimal tactical force. Instead of avoiding enemy casualties, he was authorized to prioritize mission success. Alliance lead elements are entering Arcturus space, Choi reported. 123 ships approaching the first neutral world. Lee activated the Sol's new tactical systems. Beginning demonstration of human intermediate response capabilities. What happened next was recorded by dozens of observer ships and broadcast across the galaxy. The Sol moved through the Alliance fleet like it was standing still. Enhanced human reflexes and tactical systems allowed them to target multiple enemy ships simultaneously with impossible precision, but instead of the complete destruction that characterized standard infantry operations. The human attack focused on specific ship systems, weapons disabled, engines neutralized, communication systems disrupted, command centers targeted with non-lethal precision strikes. Within 30 minutes, the entire Alliance vanguard was floating helplessly in space. Not destroyed, not eliminated, but completely unable to continue their assault on the neutral worlds. Kim coordinated the tactical strikes while monitoring casualty reports. Minimal personnel losses on the enemy ships. Most casualties are from crew members who resisted evacuation from targeted areas. Alliance reinforcements are moving to engage us, Nam reported. 200 additional ships approaching from multiple vectors. Let them come, Lee said calmly. The Sol engaged the reinforcement fleets with the same systematic precision. Enhanced human capabilities allowed them to fight multiple opponents simultaneously while maintaining perfect tactical awareness of the entire battlefield. But the most important part was what they chose not to do. Every Alliance ship was disabled rather than destroyed. Every crew was given opportunities to evacuate before critical systems were targeted. Every attack was precisely calibrated to achieve tactical objectives without unnecessary casualties. Park monitored communications from the observer ships. The reaction was immediate and profound. The Saurian observers are reporting that this demonstrates controlled superiority rather than overwhelming force, she said. They're calling it warfare with honor. The Centaurian military attaché just sent a message to his government, Choi added. He's recommending immediate cessation of all military expansion plans. As the battle continued, the Alliance fleets began attempting coordinated attacks against the Sol. 400 ships focusing their fire on a single human vessel should have been decisive. Instead, it became a demonstration of exactly how outmatched they were. The Sol's enhanced defensive systems and Kim's upgraded tactical capabilities allowed them to evade or neutralize every attack while continuing their systematic disabling of enemy vessels. Within 4 hours, the entire Alliance expedition was floating helplessly in space. 437 warships completely intact, but totally unable to function as military units. Alliance Command is requesting communication, Choi reported. Lee activated the broad-spectrum communication system that would allow every observer in the sector to hear the conversation. This is Alliance Fleet Commander Zenthak, came the transmission. We request immediate ceasefire and negotiation. This is Commander Lee Jinho of the Terran Special Operations Division, Lee replied. The ceasefire will continue as long as your forces withdraw from neutral space immediately. We agree to withdraw, Zenthak said quickly, but we request understanding of human intentions regarding galactic territorial disputes. Lee looked at his team before responding. This was the moment when humanity's true position in the galaxy would be established. Human intentions are simple, he said. We prefer diplomatic solutions to territorial disputes. We support the rights of neutral worlds to remain neutral. We will assist species that choose cooperation over conquest. He paused, knowing his next words would be analyzed by every government in the galaxy. But we will not allow aggressive expansion that threatens innocent populations, regardless of whether that expansion directly threatens human interests. The choice between diplomatic engagement and military intervention belongs to the species making territorial claims, not to the species being threatened. The implications were clear to every listener. Humanity was establishing itself as the guarantor of galactic stability, but through demonstrated restraint, rather than threatened annihilation. Park monitored the observer communications as Lee's words were transmitted across the galaxy. The response was immediate and varied. Species with aggressive expansion plans began reassessing their strategies. Neutral worlds began requesting formal protection agreements with Earth. Existing alliances started discussing how to adapt to a galaxy where humanity actively policed territorial disputes. Alliance fleets are beginning withdrawal from Arcturus space, Nam reported. Estimated departure time for all forces is 6 hours. Confirmed, Lee replied. Terran forces will monitor the withdrawal and provide assistance with disabled ship systems once neutral space is clear. Kim deactivated his enhanced combat systems and felt his capabilities return to their normal diplomatic limitations. The contrast was striking. For 4 hours, he had operated at a level of tactical effectiveness that made his previous missions seem like training exercises. How long have these enhanced capabilities existed? He asked Colonel Han. They've been in development since the Special Operations Division was created, Han replied. Earth Command needed options between diplomatic protest and standard infantry deployment. Today was the first operational test. Park thought about the implications. So the galaxy has been living under a balance of power they didn't fully understand. They knew about our diplomatic capabilities and our elimination capabilities, but not about our intermediate capabilities. Now they know, Lee said.